Hello, I'm a student of the German International School, Singapore. And for our IB, we have been assigned personal projects. And well, for my personal project, I have chosen to paint a mural. I need some useful resources of information, and I came across your videos on YouTube. I was hoping you could please help me out by answering my questions. It would help me out a lot. What are the most important techniques for painting a mural? Oh man, that's, a book could be written on the most important techniques for painting a mural. Understanding of color. That's number one. Watch the video, the color theory in paint that I posted. I think that you could do everything wrong in a picture, but if you nail the colors, it'll still look pretty good. And I think you could do everything right in a picture, but if you mess up the colors, then no good. The colors make the biggest difference of anything, so learn how to get the colors right. There are a lot of different elements to getting colors right, like contrast, using opposite colors next to each other, what colors to make darker, what colors to make lighter. It's not only learning what shade of blue to make the sky, but how deep, how dark to make that blue. And not only what shade of green to make the grass and trees, but how dark to make that shade, and just how intense, how much gray is in that color. So color understanding is number one. What would be the best tips for painting? Use good tools. Definitely have the right brushes, rollers, whatever you're using. Use good tools, because when you get frustrated because a brush isn't making nice edges for you, it ruins your inspiration, it messes up everything. So you want to use the right tools. And tips for painting. Don't be afraid to do it wrong. Make mistakes, paint wrong stuff all over the wall, and have fun doing it, and really work hard at identifying why it looks wrong. If you don't put anything wrong on the wall, then it's kind of hard to learn. Don't expect yourself to always do things right the first time just by studying. You want to be able to do 100 things wrong, look at those wrong things, get them ingrained in your brain to know, so that every time you see yourself doing things that look bad from then on, you immediately recognize that you're training your brain to recognize what looks wrong. Which is the best paint to use? Interior or exterior, water base, acrylic, latex, paint. Which stage is the most important? Probably the planning stage. You don't want to sink yourself in too deep. You don't want to plan something that's bigger than what you can handle. Be very careful during the planning stage and try to consider the perspective. And I think that's the most important, just like the foundation of any building is the most important. That's the part that without it, nothing else can stand, right? So a painting also has a foundation. That foundation, I think, consists of determining what your light source is, figuring out where you're standing, the perspective of the picture. Decide these things in advance. Where do I want it to look best from? What part in this room? If I'm standing here, this is a big picture, so I'm going to be turning my head to look at this mural. I want it to look good when I look that way. I want it to look good when I look this way. If I move over here, it's going to look different. So I got to decide which place I want to be looking at the mural from, and then design it accordingly. If you draw a cube over here, you're going to see this edge. So then when you move over to this part of the painting, you shouldn't see that edge anymore, but you will, because it's a flat wall. That's why you need to decide which part is the most important. So decide where you want people to view the mural from. Decide your perspective, decide your lighting. Get your darkest colors laid down, get your lightest colors laid down to gauge all the colors in between. What is the hardest part of creating the mural? And then she also says, thanks, your videos are really good. This is Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, very much. That's nice. The hardest part of creating a mural is, for me, it's being able to finish what I've started. I overcommit every single time. If I bid a job for 10 hours, I'm going to do 20. It just goes without saying. I can't stand walking away when there's still improvement that could be made. That is the hardest thing, is being able to effectively plan the mural and then execute it without going way over on hours. That is always the hardest thing. There's also a lot of challenges with perspective. I think perspective boggles people's brains more than anything, just because it's hard. It's like a 3D modeling system on a computer. Perspective is more than just like you learn in high school art class, where they have you draw 3 different vanishing points and you've got the corner of a city block and it's disappearing. It's more than just that. Perspective is it applies to round, more organic shapes, and it applies to how close you are to an object versus how far. If I hold this phone up to here, it's got a real, the angles are real sharp and it has a real extreme vanishing point. If it's back here, then there's hardly any difference between the back of the phone and the front of the phone. So perspective changes with how close you are, how far you are, and the angle that you're standing. And then when you get into organic shapes, and then perspective also is what part of reflection you're going to see. When light comes this way and bounces off my hand and hits my eyes, that angle changes, and so when you're doing 3-dimensional objects, I'm not trying to scare anybody out of doing murals now. I mean, the question was, what's the hardest part? I think that's the hardest part, is imagining the 3D environment, because you've got to imagine it and try to do everything as accurately as possible. That is, if you are trying to, replicate, if you're trying to mirror reality in that way. I mean, you could just go all abstract and everything and do things in an illustrated way. I'm not against that. I just talking about what the hardest part is, right? Hardest thing I've experienced. Art can be a touchy subject, I never really fit in. I went to this school. I went to this Flagstaff Arts and Leadership Academy in Flagstaff. I hear good things about it, and those of you watching in Flagstaff, FALA is a good school. I don't want to say anything bad about it, but I found that it was hard for me to fit in with artists, because artists don't like defining things. They don't like having a wrong and a right way. I'm just saying this is a tendency. It's not absolute, right? Whereas my motivation was always learn how things work so that I can learn how to do what I want to do. If I think to myself, I want to paint this apple and make it look this way, I want to have the tools to do that. Bam, done, because I learned how to do it. And then if I think to myself, now I want to do an impressionistic style and just do an abstract thing where it just has the impression of that same apple, I want to be able to, bam, get it done, just the way I imagined. That's what I imagined being a high level of skill, is being able to accomplish exactly what you're putting your mind to and not being confined to your own style and inspiration. Well, we're all on a learning curve. Everything I paint, God did it first, better than I'll ever do it. So, I don't feel any place to hold my skill level above anyone else. I'm just doing the best that I can with what I've got, just like anybody else, right? Keep the questions coming. I really like answering them. And we're going to try to do Saturday morning. I'm really shooting for Saturday mornings to do live events. So check out the channel this Saturday, and I'm really going to try to get over there and get a live show going. I'm very technologically challenged, so it's been it's been a lot of new stuff for me to learn, trying to figure out how to get the computer. But I think I've got it, and we're going to try to do another live thing this Saturday.